Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we explore a real-world crisis. Sometimes we uncover topics that are hidden or less understood by the mainstream. Today, Dr. Syb Brown takes us on a journey of one of these topics. It's quite personal because it's her journey. Dr. Syb is professor of journalism at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. Prior to that, she was a television news reporter. She combines those worlds in courses she creates and teaches. We get personal with Dr. Syb in the case file I call Real Life Sybil. You will hear about her adoption journey and the shocking news that changed her life right before her 42nd birthday. And full disclosure, Dr. Syb, I'll share that you and I met in 2000 when we were both TV reporters at the CBS station in Nashville. I knew you then as Sybil Bennett. Let's start at your new beginning. What happened the night before you turned 42?
Well, lean in, if you will. So our beloved aunt, one of our favorite aunts on my dad's side, passed away. And a cousin called to say she had passed. Here's the funeral information tentatively. And I said, great. I get to go to another family funeral where I look adopted. She said, that's because you are.
And that's the first time anyone had said anything like that to you.
Well, it's the first time I received confirmation. When I was younger, I used to ask the question on a regular basis. I know I'm adopted. Tell me the truth. But my family did not. Unfortunately, during the era of the baby scoop era from 1945 to 1973, approximately 4 million babies were put up for adoption. During that era, closed adoption was solidified. So when they began this notion of closed adoption, they told the mothers at that time the babies were a blank slate and the babies would not remember their birth mothers or anything about their childhood. This was a farce, a known farce, because in the 1940s, there's literature in social work that said, do not remove a baby from its mother. Similar to a dog. We wean dogs, but we will take a baby from its mother, which defies all logic at birth.
Wow. So she said, that's because you are.
Mm-hmm.
Without getting
Yes.
into every little detail, I mean, what happened next? Because you had the parents, the family you actually grew up with, who had been lying to you.
Yes. Mama was still living. And people always, well, which one? Mama's mama. So you figure out which one is which. But my mom, I asked her, of course, because of the family funeral, I ended up seeing my mother. And another relative had warned her that I was well aware of the truth finally. And so in true silent generation fashion, she said, what's it to you?
Oh,
Because that was that era. And, you understand where people are, but it doesn't justify. A lot of times people say, well, it was the times. Well, slavery was the times. It doesn't mean we want to go back there or experience anything of that era. I get it, but realize it doesn't justify it. It may explain or put in context, but it doesn't make it right. And let me be very clear. I believe in adoption when the mother is dead or beyond rehabilitation. So those two instances necessary. During the baby scoop era, you were looking at infidelity, rape, children being children, experimentation, people cheating on their husbands because they were in the military and came home to a baby and they weren't there to create the baby. So a lot of this really boils down to adult shame. Either shame the mother experiences directly because she's felt she's done something wrong, or at that time, the grandparents would often pressure underage mothers to give up the children, regardless of how the mother felt about the situation.
so how do you, at this point then, did you find out, and sorry if this term isn't right, that your biological mother was still alive?
So you search. So for most adoptees, so what happens is adoption fog. So I come through this fog. and it's misty. Everything is in flux. Your identity, your reality, your present, your past, your future, everything is in flux. So, of course, as a journalist, I especially want to search, right? Because we're trained to get accurate information. Well, at the time, my adoptive family was resentful. They didn't want me to know who I was. We are your family. So I waited 7 years. So I lost 7 years of searching for, once again, people pleasing and trying to appease the adopted family. Just because an adoptee wants to meet their birth family doesn't negate the adoptive family. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with people with other personality issues, immaturity, insecurity, etc., the baby is a product. You're paying money for a human being. And this is what society doesn't want to grapple with. Adoption now is a $20 billion business. It's an industry. And whenever you buy and sell something, there's a transactional cost, no matter what it is. In this process, I, as an adoptee, am the product. So fundamentally, I searched for both families, both parents. Both of my parents were deceased. So in adoptee world, I found graves for my biological mother and my biological father. Both died prior to their 33rd birthdays or right when they turned 33. And this would have been in 82 and 84 when I was still in grade school and high school, respectively.
But you were very much, if you had known, you might have wanted to meet them.
Oh, without question. Without question. Absolutely. Like whole in a healthy situation. But even in unhealthy situations, I mean, we've seen drama after drama, we've seen court cases, et cetera. The children want their parents, even when the parents are abusive in some cases. You want your parent, you want to know who you look like. I grew up with no genetic representation. So I'm running around thinking I'm ugly. And then kids are calling me ugly. And I have no mirror. I have nobody I look like. So I look like a unicorn. And I'm trying to figure out my way without the puzzle box. I'm a piece to a puzzle and I'm with the wrong box. So I don't fit anywhere. So a lot of adoptees experience this sense of never belonging, that we're part of Peter Pan's Never Never Land.
Wow, that is, I mean, there's just so much here to unpack with you, and so much I absolutely respect that you have lived through and had to deal with. About 150,000 adoptions happen in the United States every year. 5 to 7 million Americans currently, present day, are adoptees. And you talked about your adoptee fog. You also had this reckoning with reality. Was was there a lot of damage that happened both to others and to you as you went through then that reckoning with this new reality?
Well, let me do two things real quick. Circling back, late discovery adoptees are a percentage within the number you named. There are people who still don't know who they are. When the adoptive parents die, that's when they find out the truth. And if you really think using common sense, the adoptive parents adopted that person, no other relative. So when you lose your adoptive parents, in some cases, adoptees lose their adoptive family also, so they're abandoned a second time, if not third, fourth time. So there's all these different relinquishments and losses that compound. So your reality is absolutely shifted. I have 2 birth certificates, 2 different sets of parents, 2 different hospitals. Now, we're not going to go political, but think about the SAVE Act when it comes to adoptees. You're talking about original birth record with original names, not to mention those who are international adoptees. So it's a whole nother can of worms that's being opened right now, and people are still in denial. So the levels of reality, I went through a stage of frustration and anger. And during that stage, people were telling me, be grateful, how dare you have the unmitigated gall to tell me how to feel in an experience you would never want to have. It's easy when you're on top of the mountain telling somebody on the bottom of the mountain, it's easy to get here. So many feelings, many emotions, a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of therapy. One of the first books I read was The Primal Wound by Nancy Verrier. And Nancy Verrier, Dr. Nancy Verrier, is an adopted mother herself, and she recognized the pain in her child. And she wrote the book and did the research because she loved her adopted child so much, she wanted to understand her better. And so that's one of our foundational readings. Then you have work of Betty Lifton. who talks about the fog lifting and going through all these processes. More and more psychologists are starting to acknowledge what common sense already has shared. There's a cellular change when you remove a baby from its mother, the baby nor the mother can ever be the same again, ever. There's just no human way to reconstruct that person the same way. Are there successful, happy, well adjusted adoptees? Absolutely. Is there a disproportionate number of adoptees who are addicted and otherwise compromised? Yes. Are there a lot of people who haven't even connected this adoption trauma to their reality? Why do I date the way that I date? Why am I so desperate? Why am I having attachment issues? Why am I having abandonment issues? Why am I a professional recovering people pleaser? So there's
Let
a lot to
alone,
that.
let alone the biological, genetic illnesses that you might have inherited that you have no idea, right?
Well, they love you so much that the mother didn't want you. That's the normal trope, right? The mother didn't want you. Well, I found documentation. My mother absolutely wanted me. She was 17. She absolutely wanted me, but legally she could not keep me at that time. But she wanted me. And I know that for a fact. For all of you who run out here, they didn't want you. You don't know the story. They didn't want the shame or the embarrassment of sleeping with somebody else's husband. They didn't want the shame or embarrassment of the molestation that happened in the family or family friend, etc. So unfortunately, we have a challenge facing things that make us uncomfortable. And it's all piled on that adopted person, which is really tragic.
It is tragic. And one of the things you did, which I think is so beautiful, is you actually changed your name. Tell us about that.
Well, I didn't change it. The thing is, so I did have a birth name, which I don't share with people yet. I will eventually, but I had a name. My birth mother gave me my name. The adoptive family changed my name. So my adoptive daddy, my daddy, gave me a name with a silent letter in the middle that defies English language rules. So my name is spelled Sybril, which should be Sybril, which is what I used for reporting when I came to Nashville. I changed it because of the spelling of my name, and I was married at the time.
And you were married at the time, and that's why I knew you
Right.
as Sybril Bennett.
Correct. And so when my daddy heard people calling me Sybril, he was very displeased. And one day we were having a dinner, he's eating, everybody's saying, Sybril this and Sybril that. He goes, your name is Sybil, and went back to eating. And so I have tried my best to correct my error, not realizing that he took that personally. Even as a reporter, he never said anything to me about it until that moment. But my
But
name
that
is
was your
Sybil.
respect for him. I mean, even through the
Correct.
trauma you then eventually would grapple with, your respect for
Absolutely.
him.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love my adopted family and I'm angry. Two things can be true. The problem is people want you and or. And when you tell an adoptee to be grateful, that is one of the biggest insults you can give them because you are disregarding their lived experience. Be grateful you lost your mother at birth. Many of you are still grieving the loss of a parent. Adoptees don't have that grace. I didn't get to grieve the loss of my mom until now. My birth mother, who I'm her twin, like copy
Wow.
and paste. My face is her face is my face, literally. Until you see my dad. It's a hold my beer moment. Depending on how old you are, you morph and look like different parents at different times in your life. But I can smile now, Roshini. That's the thing. There was so much anger. I couldn't even talk about these issues. And then people judging you and telling you how to feel and telling you who you are. I know you don't need to tell me who I am and correct me and police me.
Right. And
I
you
know who
kind of
I
had
am.
to, and you had to sort of go through that. You've always been a very confident person, very smart, intellectual, intelligent, confident. And then to find all that out, and I believe it was after I left Nashville that you were finding this out. So when you and I have stayed in touch and different times that you've been in the town where I live and you always reach out, we get together. And the original time you told me about this story a few years ago and the finding out, I know there was a lot of anger. And it's really amazing because here we are today in our case file number 145, Real Life Sybil. And there is a lot of joy I see in you, Dr. Syb. There's a lot of joy. And I just want to say openly, I am proud of you for working through all of this. And what's so amazing is you are trying to help and give hope to those families, whether they're an adoptee or not, because all of us are touched by this phenomenon called adoption. Whatever role in it you play, whether you're someone's aunt, uncle, niece, neighbor, father, grandfather, grandmother, whatever, or the adoptee yourself, what are some of those lessons? And how did you, I don't want to say turn the corner because my guess is you still have days, but you are such a happy person. How did you find the will to move toward hope, and what are your lessons to others?
You become bound and determined to live your life. So I'm in a manipulated, amended situation all the way around. And so I have choices to make. Am I going to allow this to destroy me? Or am I going to figure out how to leverage this for my good and the good of others? And it's a decision that you make. You get to the wall of anger, you punch the wall enough times, the hands are bloody, you're about broken your hands, and you realize I still need to use my hands. I still need to live. I still need to breathe. I deserve a good life. And so through therapy, somatic work, exercise, affirmations, my friends have been everything. Friends and family members who understand have been very supportive. Part of it is when you're trying to support people through something, it's just listening. Don't judge. Don't say at least. The most divisive two words when someone is struggling, at least. Telling somebody who's had a miscarriage, at least you have other children. It's not helpful. It's really rude and invasive. So stop telling people how to feel. So when people kept doing that to me, over time I got stronger because, initially it would cause a burst of just rage. But over time I said, you know what? That's where you are. And I'm glad you're not me. And I'm glad you're not experiencing this. So it's really a choice to be happy. It's a choice to embrace joy. Some days are better than others. Today is a great day. I got out, took a 3-mile walk. I walked 3 miles as many days as I can during the week. Fresh air, grounding, breathing exercises. People laugh at the breathing exercises, but you really do need to breathe in through your nose so it can filter and kind of cleanse the air and warm the air. And all of these things matter. Funny, Roshini, things that I've always done my whole life were therapeutic and I didn't realize it. Singing in the choir, humming, athletics, playing volleyball, basketball, softball, all those things I did help calm my nervous system in ways I didn't realize I needed that type of calm.
You have taught us so much, and definitely a lesson I will try to eradicate at least from my vocabulary for any concept, any topic.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, I am so happy to understand you better, to understand how you have chosen to take all the layers and make amazing lemonade. And I can't wait, and the Crisis Files can't wait to help promote your book when it comes out, because just in this conversation, I mean, your book is just spinning above and around, and it's going to be so amazing when it comes out for the world, Dr. Syb.
I think so. I think that the things that I've learned and put in context, because you feel alone and you feel, I hate to say the word crazy, but you just feel outside of yourself. And the thing is, Whitney Houston said, learning to love yourself is the greatest gift of all. And you don't realize you don't love yourself. You really don't, until you come to that moment where you go, I don't. And as an adopted person, I have multiple personalities. I have multiple identities. From a spiritual lens, I wonder in my head, just hypothetically, what name does God call? Because I've had multiple names, multiple identities. I'm multiple things to multiple people. And different adoptees adjust differently. People constantly want to put people, us in a box, and it's inappropriate because somebody can encounter this and say, I'm fine. I have no issues. Leave me alone. Someone else, unfortunately, is in the group that's 4 times more likely to commit suicide. Also, an interesting note, I think I mentioned to you at one point or another, 16% of serial killers were adopted. And
Wow.
people don't understand them. Well, You're taking somebody from their mother.
Yeah.
The mother wound. We need to be healing society, helping with parenting classes, helping mothers be better mothers. Give them the money for support. Don't take their child from them. I think I mentioned to you Georgia Tann real quick. I want to say this because I think your audience might find it very interesting to research. So Georgia Tann, T as in Tom, A-N-N as in Nancy. Georgia Tann came out of Mississippi, moved into the Memphis, Tennessee area. She became a baby broker and really led to our modern day adoption industry. She was she was racist, so she didn't like dark-skinned babies. She only dealt in white children, which was even, it's all unfortunate. But if the baby was ugly or fat or a baby she didn't like, she buried him in the backyard. So
Oh
she
my
was a part
gosh.
serial killer also. Then she would literally go to, she would literally go to women who were poor, impoverished, or struggling and say, I can help you. She had women signing over their children and then selling those children. That's where actress Joan Crawford got her children, Georgia Tann. Mommy Dearest, Christina's book, Christina told the truth. Joanna Miss Crawford was at the time so powerful that they ignored Christina. But Christina told the truth. She and her brother were older adoptees. The younger ones didn't have the same experience. Even if you watch the movie, in there, the attorney says, you're not allowed to adopt. He has to go through a back door. The back door was Georgia Tann. Georgia never faced charges. She was brought up on charges, but she died during the court case. And Judge Camille Kelly, who was complicit and helped her, also died before either one could see justice.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wait, whoa. Like, I am speechless through this. I did not know
There's
about
so
Georgia
much,
Tann.
until you go through something, all of us go down different rabbit holes for different reasons. But that's why they say, you really don't understand walking a mile in someone else's shoes. You can't, even if you put their shoes on, you still don't understand the steps they took. So
Yeah,
for me
you
now,
don't.
I know I'm an educator. I know I'm a journalist. I know I'm a human being who deserves dignity. I know I have a right to tell it's my story. People kept trying to take the pen. Everybody, take the pen. She's the villain. I am not the villain in my own story.
No, absolutely not. You are the hero in this story. And I can't wait for this story to go to the masses. We on the Crisis Files are so pleased that we can kind of help in that journey for you. Thank you for letting us be part of this journey and teaching us so much today. And I think you'd have to be so hard-headed if you didn't hear everything Dr. Syb has said and not gained some major appreciation for life, your own life, and how to look at other human beings in a much more gracious, patient way. Dr. Syb, thank you so much for today. You can connect directly with Dr. Syb on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. On Insta, she's at I am Dr. Syb, and on LinkedIn, she's Dr. Syb Brown. Today's case file is powered by Comcast. The Xfinity Network is Comcast's next-generation broadband network. It delivers better reliability, increased capacity, low latency, and multi-gig speeds, all to power the rapid rise in internet consumption today and in the future. Find out more about the Comcast connection at corporate.comcast.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Go to thecrisisfiles.com to check out all 3 seasons in our library of case files. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.